President, what's your reaction to the indictment of your former campaign aide, Steve Bannon?
Well, I feel very badly. I haven't been dealing with him for a long period of time, as most of the people in this room know. He was involved in our campaign. He worked for Goldman Sachs. He worked for a lot of companies, but he was involved likewise in our campaign and for a small part of the administration very early on. I haven't been dealing with him at all. I know nothing about the project other than I didn't like, when I read about it, I didn't like it. I said, this is for government, this isn't for private people. And it sounded to me like showboating, and I think I let my opinion be very strongly stated at the time. I didn't like it. It was showboating and maybe looking for funds, but you'll have to see what happens. I think it's a very sad thing for Mr. Bannon. I think it's surprising, but this was something, as you know, just by reading social media and by reading whatever it is, and by speaking to Mike and all of them, I didn't like that project. I thought that was a project that was being done for showboating reasons. I don't know that he was in charge. I didn't know any of the other people either. But it's sad. It's very sad.
All right, so let's give a little context as to what President Trump is saying there. Brian Kolfage, Andrew Badalato, and Timothy Shea, as well as Steve Bannon, as he was talking about, have been indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Now, the program that he's speaking about was called We Build the Wall. And what they're saying is, or they being the federal government, is that hundreds of thousands of dollars donated to the online crowdfunding campaign were illegally used by those four defendants in a misappropriation of funds through that wire fraud, as I was talking about earlier, or at least the conspiracy to do so. Let's bring in our guests and talk more about this. Hunter, let's start with you. I mean, Steve Bannon was in the news about this. This came out in so many ways. We've heard about this Build a Wall that was attached to President Trump's campaign promises, and now we're hearing that hundreds of thousands of dollars were allegedly misappropriated. What did you make of it?
Well, first, I think they were saying in excess of $1 million was misappropriated, and maybe more than that. What's really what you have to look at here is there was a collection of a large sum of money, and the promise was all of the money was going to go to build the wall, whether you like it or you dislike it. That's what they promised when they got contributors to donate money. It was very clear. No one expected it to be used for personal reasons. No one expected it to be utilized for distribution among the four or the three people involved. And here, that's what happened. This is a classic case of fraud if those facts are true. What we know is they collected millions of dollars, maybe in excess of 20 or 25 million, and a chunk of it went into these people's pockets, according to the government. It is wrong, and it should never have happened.
Yeah. Now, Judge Birmingham, the prosecutors told the judge last week that they may be seeking a gag order because one of the defendants, Kolfage, supposedly had highly inflammatory language. That's the language that they use in describing it. That was on his social media, specifically on Facebook, where he was streaming live videos. Now, the judge said if the judge determines that the public statements by attorneys or the defendants threaten the court's ability to conduct a fair trial, a gag order may be in place. Talk to us about gag orders and how they may be used in a case like this.
Well, gag orders conflict with the First Amendment. Everybody has a right to free speech, but we also see that the fact-finding mission of a trial is of the utmost importance as well, especially when you're talking about cases as important as this. So if any of the statements are going to be made or are calculated to try to persuade jurors before the trial or to impugn the integrity of that fact-finding mission, well, then the judge needs to put a gag order in place, basically telling lawyers, you're not allowed to talk about this case, do all your talking in the courtroom, try your case to the jurors to maintain the integrity of the process. And that's why I think, jury trials to me are so exciting, is because that's really the time in a case where you really get to see what all the evidence is in a particular trial, in a particular case.
Yeah. And in this case, I mean, oftentimes, Judge, let's throw this one to you again. In the federal government, when they prosecute, there is oftentimes a plethora of information. We're hearing search warrants executed for physical evidence, that being like hard drives. They went to the cloud. They got all this information. What kind of trial would you expect? And we're talking about conspiracy to commit wire fraud and just the volume, because a lot of people were donating to this, as Hunter pointed out, with the money that was funneled into this. What kind of trial would you expect if this does go to trial?
Probably one in three parts. The first one is going to be the solicitation. What did they say in order to get people to donate? The second part will be the collection of it. Where was the money stored? And then finally, the part's going to be the disbursement. How exactly was this money dispersed? Where's the wall, first of all? Where's this wall that they were going to build? And, then you start looking at the individual lifestyles after. How did they change? Did they start buying things they weren't otherwise normally buying? How did their lifestyle change? So I think the trial will follow those three steps.
All right, Hunter, you're a trial attorney through and through. Talk to me about the strategies in a trial like this for either the prosecution or the defense. How are they going to kind of navigate this case?
Well, I think from the prosecution standpoint, it's fairly straightforward. Follow the money. You always follow the money. It's easy to see when the money came into these accounts. It's easy to track it through the time it's sitting in the accounts, and then it's easy to figure out where the money went at the end. And at least as the prosecution saying, the money went not directly into the pockets in many occasions. It was actually, according to the government, funneled through entities. They're going to have a hard time, the defendants, explaining why this money didn't go and build a wall when it went through different entities and ended up as personal expenditures. Yeah. So from that standpoint, it's a pretty straightforward prosecution of a wire fraud or a financial fraud.
Now, Hunter, I'm already thinking trial strategy. I'm thinking, if I'm a defense attorney here, I've got to sever. I don't want my client being charged in this group. Do you think this could be a case where we see 4 defendants sever their cases and maybe start pointing fingers at each other, maybe taking plea deals, and maybe some snitching or some informants on one or the other?
I think this is a classic case for someone taking a plea, and there's nothing wrong with it. They know what they did if, in fact, these facts are true. Someone is going to crack, someone is going to come forward and say, give me the best deal now and get me out, and we'll provide evidence to support the convictions against the other people. This is exactly what I would expect in this case. The question is, which one?
Yeah, we'll wait and see. The trial date is set for May 24th of next year, 2021. So maybe we'll see that. And from now until then, I absolutely agree when it comes to that. Hunter, someone's going to take a plea, and we're going to hear a great witness take the stand against someone. Who that will be, we just got to wait and see. Let's switch.